Oh, when the shark bites, come on, see,
You're on.
hey,
I thought he said Baby Shark.
some song.
Are we on?
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah?
I need some music.
Too much Baby Shark right now.
I'd like to call this meeting to order, June 9th, 2022. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Here?
Mrs. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Fulton?
Here.
Mr. Grimm?
Here?
Mr. Violi?
Here, please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on, do we have anybody signed up for comments?
We do not have anybody for public comment tonight.
Okay, then we'll move on to approval of minutes. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from May 12th, 2022 as submitted.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Any comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to reports. We have superintendent's report first.
Thank you, Mr. Violi. The first two bullet points on the agenda are just more or less a heads up. We've done this in the past, so it may not be unfamiliar to the board, but at our middle school and our high school, we'd kind of like to do that soft start for our youngest students. So at the middle school, on August 17th, will be 6th grade and new students only, with the 7th and 8th graders reporting on August 18th. And we're going to do the same thing at the high school. We'll do our freshman festival on August 17th. Again, always the freshmen, give them an opportunity to get acclimated to high school because this is a pretty big building. They're not used to running a schedule. Give Mr. McCann a chance to meet with them and all the teachers. And then on August 18th, all grades report. So I wanted to get that out there publicly. Both the middle school and high school will appropriately announce that in August to make sure that parents know that, and we'll get that on the district calendar. But it's been successful in the past, and it's a nice way to transition students into a new building. I don't know if any of you guys have any questions about that.
Nope, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a great event.
Okay, and then my final item, I've been thinking a lot about our board meetings and a lot about kind of just the state of our country, and I personally think that we need to kind of start flipping the narrative, and I'm not implying that any of you, but I think that we all need to be more positive. And so I thought it would be an okay or a good idea, if the board's in support of it, that at the beginning of each one of my superintendent reports beginning in August, I would like every board member and people up here at the table to come with something positive that they've experienced with the district to share. So we'll start with a quick positive at the beginning of each superintendent's report. I think there are a lot of good things that go on in our district, and all of you guys see those through different lenses, some as parents, some as board members, some as parents that had kids in the past, CJ as an employee, Kyle's an employee, myself as an employee. So I just thought it would be nice for us from our seats to point out to the public some of the positive things that we're seeing each month in the district. So I guess I just wanted to see if the board was open to doing that, and if so, I'd like to start that in August.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Sounds great.
All right, so then I'll ask them to everyone up here on the stage, including CJ and Kyle, that if we can all have a positive from our seat beginning in August to share quickly at the beginning of the superintendent's report.
Perfect.
All right,
Great.
that's all I have, Mr. Violi.
That's one of the fastest reports you've had.
You
Yeah.
just jinxed us.
Let's see if Kyle and CJ can do that.
There you go. Kyle
Moving on,
hasn't spoken yet. Just give it a minute.
moving on to treasurer's report.
I do realize that the 5-year forecast does take a lot of time, so I do not have a large report today. I'm just going to reflect on May's activity. So for ending May 31st, the general fund had a cash balance of $10,082,623. For the month of May, I'm sorry, I have April in there, but this is May. The revenues of $352,000, mainly through 2 state foundation reports and some remaining athletic fees. And then the district processed $1,963,755 of expenditures through 2 May payrolls, health care expenses, vendor agreements, and utility payments. And this resulted in expenditures exceeding revenue of around $1.6 million. And that concludes my report tonight.
Lovely.
Do you have a mic drop?
Wow, that was maybe even a little quicker.
That might be the quickest ever.
But, you know, CJ,
Sorry.
I guess they're
It's a
giving
trade-off,
the
right?
time to you on this one, so moving on to the Chief Business Officer's report.
It will not be that long. I am going to invite Heath and Matt on stage from the nutrition group to give a brief presentation. I gave them a 5-minute limit this
You're
evening.
already
You
over
can
the
have
time frame
7.
that they went, so.
So
it
when the
doesn't-
timer goes off, then that will be that. But they're up here to just talk about some of the great things Nutrition Group has done throughout the school year, specifically the month of May, all the fun events that went on, just to show showcase one of the areas of our lines of business here in the school district and how it interacts with kids. Earlier today, I sent you all like a PowerPoint presentation put together by the nutrition group of some of the fun things that happened in May. They're just going to reiterate that, and then when they're done, I'll briefly touch on something you'll be voting on this evening.
All right, fortunately, I don't talk a lot, so it should be pretty short, sweet, to the point. Yeah, I haven't got to see you guys as much as I'd like to. These last few years have been fun, but unfortunately, this will be my last board meeting with you all. But fortunately, we do have Matthew Pettit behind me. He's I haven't heard any complaints yet, so either people need to complain a little louder, or I think y'all are going to be just fine. I've had a lot of fun. We've really got to get into our special events and things this year. You know, we were able to get the budget to a good place to where we could, you know, spend a couple extra dollars here or there on some fun things, some staff appreciation, different things. We actually got to interact with schools and the One Read, One Book initiative. So a lot of good things, and like I said, I'm not much of a talker. So I'm just going to let you, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Pettit here, and he can let you know all the fun stuff we've been doing.
Yeah. Thanks, Heath. I appreciate it. So, as Heath said, we do a lot of fun stuff. I'm not opposed to dressing up and participating and having fun. So, May 4th, we did May 4th Day. May the 4th be with you for Star Wars. We had a good time. We dressed up. We decorated, themed menus, themed breakfast, giveaways. Same thing for the One Book, One School, the elementary school. The Dory Phantasmagory. We dressed up as the characters.
CJ joined us.
A lot of help from CJ, dressing up at these events as well. So we try to do things. In your report, there was also, we got in a lot of different fresh fruits and everything for springtime. We tried grapefruit at one of the schools. Kids loved it. It was amazing. So we got more grapefruit. Kids loved it. We were getting fresh strawberries in, and that's going to continue. We got a nice big grant. So we're going to have, coming in this fall, more fresh fruits, vegetables, produce, all that great stuff. But yeah, it's really fun. Thank you for welcoming me. I was here in the original contract to start up the program. He's been great, and everyone's welcome to all these events as well. Please, if you want to come dress up, if you want to come hand out cookies to kids, if you want to, tell us your favorite foods and we can cook them and whatever, we are more than welcome for ideas, opportunities to make everybody happy. And that's really what we're here for, is just smiles on the kids' faces.
And these guys have been great. They're underselling some of the stuff that was done in May. If you were here for the senior breakfast, or anybody out there that was here, hand-dipped donuts with all the toppings, biscuits and gravy, just incredible stuff. They made sure that, and that's the food service team as a whole, not just these two. But our food service team also made sure that there was food for the staff that was working the graduation event, so everybody could have sandwiches and beverages, coolers filled with water, beverages, everything planned out to the T. We talked to them and let them know what our needs were going to be, and then they helped execute that. I want to thank Heath publicly for being here the past 2 years. It's been awesome working with you. You're going to be missed. I mean, some of the things that you've done, helping us bring the food bank here in district, and then these principal days that we've put on, it's just been an incredible ride. So you're going to be missed. Matt, we look forward to the future with you and the new and exciting things that you're bringing to the table. And I just want to thank these guys publicly. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's
hard to believe,
It's been
but-
great seeing the transformation in the food service department. We knew our staff was great, and you guys just really were able to bring more to the table and elevate everything. And
Hey, we
the
just
kids,
brought it out of them.
yeah, and the feedback has
always
been
there.
awesome with the kids. The food, they'll eat it. So it's important.
We hope so.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
They like it. It's good.
If they don't, you let us know, all right?
Absolutely.
Let Heath know. Don't let, yeah.
Yeah, we'll let him know.
Yeah, that's great.
First name dot last name. You can find me on Gmail.
Thank you, Heath. Thank
Thank
you.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So this evening, we'll be, under my recommendations, we'll be asking for your vote on the renewal contract for the nutrition group. Some key things to take away. The May financials have the 006, just the food service fund. There's a couple different 006 special cost centers, but right now an unencumbered fund balance of $172,786.91. There's still an encumbrance of 103 out there. I'm not sure if that's going to all be liquidated or not. We'll have to see how that shakes out. So there is, and there's still some collections probably that need to come in there. So there is a positive fund balance as of right now in that fund. Heading into the contract for the next renewal period, it does show a deficit of about $112,000, just to be fully transparent. But that's taking into consideration some things. We haven't had like a normal lunch school year since about 2017, where students are charged for lunch. It's been, everything's been free. So we're not sure what the participation levels are going to be, and that contract shows the numbers that were reflective for sales in like 2017, because that was the last thing that they had to gauge off of. We believe they'll probably be a little higher, but it was a conservative estimate based on the contract. So it does take some of those things into consideration. Now, will lunch be free next year? We hope, but we don't think that's going to happen. So what will the sales look like then? So then we'll be able to gauge things a little better. Other things to note, the management fee was originally going to be a 7% increase. Kyle and I sat down with them, and Kyle did a great job helping get that negotiated down to a 3.5% increase from 7%. So it could be better than 112. I mean, I believe we were expected to see a loss of, I forget what the number was this year, like 76,000 or something like that, and we're going to be in the positive. So it gives us a little bit of a cushion. So that will be something that will be asked for your vote tonight, renewal of nutrition group contract. Kyle, do you have anything to add to that, because you helped me with that deal?
No, I do not. It's just that we will have a positive to buffer, and this is going to be a great barometer for this coming year, if everything goes well in the world, to really gauge of where we are financially with our Fund 006. So it's good news. A little bit disappointing that it won't be free throughout. We're hoping it's the last minute, but this is coming from Congress.
Yep.
So it's not just a Streetsboro thing. So.
Okay. Is there any questions on that? All right, I'll move along. Tonight also I'll be asking for a vote for rental agreement for Lisa's School of Dance this weekend here. We're utilizing a new structure of how we charge for our auditorium. I kind of did some research of area school districts, how they charge, what they do, and I kind of cherry-picked what I thought the best options were going to be, and then ran it past some of our teammates to kind of see. And I started to build that structure in, but I didn't want to completely initiate it yet. I want to get it all ready to roll and then have the board approve those each year moving forward, so that we have that set structure for when people do come calling. But the structure that was laid out in that agreement is a preview of the structure that we're going to look to move forward with. Lisa's in agreement with it. There was no issues with anything like that. But we need something concrete and moving forward, and how to rent this wonderful space out. If we decide we're going to rent it out, we need to have that in place. So that will be something probably in July or August that you'll see come your way for a vote in regards to a structure. But this evening we're asking for that rental agreement to be approved. Any questions on that? Okay. OSC bus bids, so back in March, we passed a resolution to go out to bid for buses through Ohio School Council, knowing that we were going to get that $145,000 from the state to help purchase buses this year, but we had to follow certain criteria. We passed that resolution that we would go out for 3 buses. We could go out for more or less, but we really need 3 to 4 this year, so we're going to go for 3. Those bids have come back. We're going to go with Rush and get international buses. Those are the preferred bus of our mechanic and our bus garage staff over there. I think it's a good decision. We include Amanda, transportation director, and Jeff Menard, our mechanic, because he's the one that knows the buses better than anyone when it comes to what we are looking at to purchase. Our goal was to not have to build a bus and it take 180 to 260 days. So we talked with our rep there, Tom Osborne, who is tremendous in getting back to us and getting us good information. And he told us that buses are currently being built. They're waiting on a part or 2, but that part should come sometime in July, and he expects some of these buses that they're building to be ready in August, September. And then what we did was, it's the same type of thing we did last year. We picked the buses that we wanted with the items in them that are being built, and then added on the Navaflex to the fuel tank and a couple other things that we feel are very important. So this evening we'll be asking you to approve the purchase of 3 buses from Rush Truck Centers.
Just a real quick question. We had talked a little bit before about the possibility of having a gasoline bus.
Yeah.
Is that something that is still being thought about? Or?
We're still doing some research on that. We want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row before we ever make that move. Another hang-up is we don't have a large enough gasoline fuel tank to hold that. So we are working with our fuel vendor just to kind of see what would that look like, what would it take, and then what are the benefits, and then what are the cons to that. So I don't think it's something out of the question, but for this purchase, we aren't going to go that route.
And would you say the price has gone up?
They've gone up. Yeah.
What about 10%? Since
Yeah.
the last time we purchased?
Yeah. I feel like last year's pricing, it was obviously a little lower, but I would say somewhere between that 5 to 10% increase for sure. It's the cost of doing business nowadays, so. But I still think we're doing well with what we're getting, especially given the money that's going to come from the state, and there'll be some paperwork that has to be filed tomorrow for the June 30 deadline after your vote this evening, so we can get that.
That money pays for about 1.5, right?
Yes, 1.5. So that's why we were able to get 3 instead of 2, and then we'll evaluate PI funds and evaluate the report GPD gives us, and if we think we can get a van this year or another bus, then we most certainly will look into it, because we can purchase off that bid at any time. And then they do another bid in the fall and the spring again. Any questions on that? Okay. And then lastly, just wanted to put this out there. I'm not going to put any slides up or anything like that. We will in a July or August meeting, but when we change the business structure, there was talk about savings and what we can do and what we can't do, and we've been keeping a little bit of track of some of the things we've done this year, bigger purchases, and I've attached in your folders there just some of the operational savings this year, and I'm happy to announce that we've exceeded expectations. I would hope to think so, at least from the board standpoint. And they've exceeded my expectations from the operational standpoint, and the promises that were made were kept, and we're going to continue that positive momentum going forward. That concludes my report.
Nice job.
Thank you, Mr. Scarpino.
Thank you.
Moving on to board reports. Kristen Bedford.
All right, so I have an athletics year in review. So I think we could all agree that the 2021 and 2022 school year was exceptional for our athletes. So I want to go down a list of all the top things that happened, and if I mess up any of these students' names, please call me out, but I was practicing. So the girls' soccer team obviously was amazing, and was the MAC champs. Senior Ella Devers and Emma Flick were named high school All-Americans. Emmett Flick was the league MVP and also the OHSAA Player of the Year in Division II. And then their coach also was named Coach of the Year for the MAC and District Coach of the Year. Girls golf, the team set a new school record for the most wins in a season at 14. Obviously, our football team did a great job this year. The 21 season was the third consecutive year the team qualified for playoffs. Cross country, junior Zach Vales was state qualifier. Boys basketball, they won the MAC, or the team, won the MAC championship, champions. And then seniors, Devin Reese was league MVP, and then Mr. Marcini was the coach, the MAC coach and district coach of the year. Girls basketball team also set a record with the most wins in a season at 18. Wrestlers, the wrestling team, the team had 2 state qualifiers, Donovan Pays and freshman Cohen Climac. Bowling, our seniors, Bradley Stevens was the league MVP. Baseball, our team won the Division II championship, sectional championship. And then track, our boys team was the district runner-up and the MAC champions. Junior Makai Schuster was league MVP, and he also is the regional champion in the 400. And I wanted to give a quick shout out to Rob Kidd. I thought he did a great job kind of rallying the community around our track when they went to state. So I think he did a great job, and just wanted to say thank you to him. At the state meet for track last week in Columbus, Makai Schuster placed 5th in the 400, which is just fantastic. So congrats to him. Sophomores, Kylan Rue, Preston Hopperton, junior Amari Steve, and senior Elijah Landry, I think, placed 5th in the 4x100 relay. Also, seeded athletes, sophomore Melena Sobey, I think that's how you say her name, Melena, placed 5th in the 100 and 5th in the 400. So just amazing job by our track team. So great year for our athletes. And I believe one thing is that they're student athletes. So really proud of what we've done with all the coaches and the parents that got them this far. That's mine.
Thank you, Ms. Bedford. Moving on to Mrs. Campbell.
Educational Foundation, we are still collecting, or Sergeant Clean, the new car wash that's coming in next to Dairy Queen. Through June 30th, you're able to text or email, go onto their website. For $5, you get 60 days of unlimited car washes. There's 2,000 families in our school district, so they've sold 867 pre-sale. The $5 goes directly to the Educational Foundation that will fund scholarships and grant moving forward. So we should sell 2,000. It's $5, 60 days for free. You can text SCS to 3040 or go on their website, sergeantclean.com/rockets. And for PTA, I do not have a report.
Thank you, Mrs. Campbell.
You're welcome.
Mr. Fulton.
In regards to legislative and academic, at last month's board meeting, I mentioned the new dyslexia legislation that was recently passed by the Ohio legislature. After a conversation with Mr. Isle, our curriculum director, I'm pleased to report that Streetsboro's plan to address this need is one that's being emulated by many districts in Northeast Ohio. This new law has 4 main requirements for local districts. Universal screening of all students in kindergarten through grade 3. Progress and monitoring of all students who need specific reading accommodations. Structured reading intervention based on the science of reading. Teacher professional development and reading literacy. In Streetsboro, we use MAP, which is Measures of Academic Progress, as our universal screening tool in grades kindergarten through 8th, and several math and reading subjects at the high school. For progress monitoring, we have used the dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills, DIBELS, literacy tools for several years. Several years ago, all reading teachers and tutors in grades K through 5 completed the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling letters program. This is the premier training to meet these new professional development requirements. New teachers to the district also receive this training during their first few years they are employed by us. Beginning in the 2025 through 26 school year, districts are required to provide dyslexia professional development to all intervention specialists in grades 4 through 12. Streetsboro will begin training this important group of teachers this fall, 3 years ahead of schedule. This training will be provided by our own highly trained literacy specialists. Lastly, the MAP tests are given 3 times a year. Individual growth data is collected for all students. In mathematics, 60% of all tested students met their growth goal for the year. In reading, 48% of all tested students met their growth target. The reading state test and high school end-of-course exam data will be released by the Ohio Department of Education next Wednesday, June 15th. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Mr. Violi. Not a lot happening with our bands, but they do have some. The high school band has car washes continuing this month at Big D's on State Route 14 and also at the fire station on Route 43. Look for band members in those areas on Saturdays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Stop by, get your car washed, and make a nice donation to the band program. Streetsboro City Council is meeting tonight at 6 o'clock for a work session. The purpose of the work session is to discuss the Parks and Senior Community Center complex that is being held in council chambers. Regular meetings of City Council will be held this coming Monday at 7 p.m. Those agendas that I just received will be forwarded to you later on. Parks and Recreation is conducting summer camp now through mid-August in the park, and as I understand it, they're also using some of the rooms over at the annex. Safety Land will be held at the annex each morning next week. These projects are possible, of course, through the hard work of our Parks and Rec department, but also with the cooperation and hard work of our operations department. Both summer camp and Safety Land are using the school facilities, and it takes a lot of coordination. And I was fortunate to be able to sit in on a meeting where we discussed both of those programs. CJ, Andreas, and Elena are doing a lot of work on behalf of the school district to make it happen, to make sure those programs go off very flawlessly. Our ops department also had some input on the event safety plan that we put together every year for that with the city. And there's just a lot of work that goes behind the scenes that people don't see. And, you know, just a shout out to the operations department again for everything that you do to help not only within the school district, but the outside programs that come into our schools to help make sure that they go off as planned. Residents, especially those near the main school campus, should also be aware that the fire department, with assistance, again, from our operations department, will land a University Hospital's air medical helicopter near the annex next Friday, June 17th. Providing there are no delays, the helicopter is expected to land around 10 a.m. This will be for Safety Land, and they'll be on site for about an hour. Of course, that all depends on their demand for service and so forth. But again, shout out to our operations department for stepping up and helping when they weren't even asked, but they did it last year and it just ran a lot smoother. So thank you for everything, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. I have a little bit to talk about Maplewood. The last meeting that we had, and you will get the notes from the meeting emailed to you all, but the last meeting we had, the featured program was dental assisting. And when we have featured programs at Maplewood that the board gets to tour, it's kind of interesting to see what these kids are learning on. I mean, they're learning on state-of-the-art equipment. They had a, for lack of better words, it was a head and it had real cadaver parts in the head so that they could actually do the dental assisting work on an actual real person, wow, so to speak. That head, I found out, was like $16,000 for that particular, piece of equipment that they have at the school, which is reusable. It's not like they have to get rid of the thing whenever it's done. They put new parts back in it. But the one thing that I found that's interesting with Maplewood is that these kids get to do the job and practice on the state-of-the-art equipment that's out there so that they're ready to, when they graduate, to go right into a profession. And just about every one of these kids are getting a job right out of high school. Either they're working as juniors or they're getting a job after they graduate in the field that they have participated in at Maplewood. I will say that typically Streetsboro as a district has probably been about the third or fourth number, from the top of kids going to that school. And what I mean by that is that, Ravenna usually has the most kids. This year coming up, we have 59 juniors that are going to Maplewood this year, and between us and Field, we're equal with the number of kids that are going into Maplewood. So I just wanted to mention that. And this past Thursday, we had the graduation ceremony. It wasn't your traditional graduation ceremony where you go to a auditorium and have an announcement, walk up, get your diploma. The kids got to be a little bit more individualized. It was like having a parade. They would drive around the building, their family would be in the cars with them or have a second car with them. Their name would be announced, they'd drive up, they'd get their certificate, get some pictures taken, and their teachers and administrators that were there cheered for them as they got their certificate. I just thought it was an interesting event and wanted to mention it tonight, so thank you for giving me that opportunity. That is it for the reports, and we can move on to the consent agenda items. It is recommended the Board of Education approve consent agenda items B through S.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments?
Just a quick one on the item K, Summer Jumpstart Program. We inadvertently mentioned Madison Flagg 5 times. She's not being hired 5 different times. She's only being hired once, but for some reason it was 5 times on that. So that's an error that we'll correct, and we'll send that out to the board, the corrected numbers. So it's not Madison Flagg 5 times.
Thank you. I just want to mention too, on item number C, the donations, there are 8 donations on here. Some are very significant ones. Morgan Stanley donated $2,500 to the Alumni Association. Allen's Alloys donated $1,500 to the Educational Foundation for 3 scholarships. And there are some other various donations in there, so just make sure that you take a look at them when you get a chance. If that's no further comments, please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
Thank you. Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the hiring of Gwen Abraham as principal at Streetsboro Elementary School effective 8/1/2022 through 7/31/2025.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Comments?
Yeah, we are very fortunate, and Gwen and I met again this morning, and she's coming to us from Garfield Heights. And what she's bringing to the table is an extensive amount of experience in an inner city environment. Gwen could not be here tonight because she already had a previous commitment with her family, and I encouraged her to do that. I'm going to try and get her to the fiscal year ending so you guys can all meet her because she was just offered and accepted the job this morning, so that's why she's not here. But Gwen comes to us from Garfield Heights. She has extensive experience in 2 key areas that we all know are areas that we really want to target next year at Streetsboro Elementary School, and the first being PBIS, and we all know the important link between student behavior and academics and their keys, and a good PBIS program and a good MTSS, which is our intervention program. Those go hand in hand, and if you don't have one, you don't have the other. And she took the elementary she's currently at was in over the 90th percentile in the state of Ohio in discipline referrals, and under her leadership took that to under 20%. And she did that through a positive behavior system. So it wasn't just suspending kids and kicking kids out of school, but one of the things she said during her interview with our teachers and community members was that you really, if you're going to change a child's behavior, you have to change the adult's reaction to it. So, and then you also have to appropriately reward students that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but also hold kids accountable that aren't. And that was a huge thing that stood out to me. That's something it's a core belief of mine, is that, many times we get bogged down as teachers, administrators, staff members and we forget that sometimes our reaction to a situation sometimes even fuels the flames, if you will. So so part of that, the second part of that, you listened to Mr. Fulton talk about the letters program and how we are actually, people are coming to us to say, what are you guys doing with primary literacy? And we participated in the letters program. So we're way ahead of the curve. A lot of schools are still just trying to identify screeners, and that has to go in place next year. And we've been there for 2 years. And she actually, in Garfield Heights, her building just finished the first through third or fourth modules of letters. So they're about where we were 3 years ago. And when she interviewed, did some research on us and interviewed, and she sees all the pieces that we have in place already, she was very excited about the opportunity to take over a program that all the pieces are in place now. Now they're just ready to take off. And I should have brought the graph with you, but I think you guys have seen this before. In 2019, our trajectory in English language arts at the elementary and third grade had gone like this. And so we were right here in 2019, and it was an upward trajectory, and we were excited about that. Pandemic hit, and we went like this. So we're hoping that even this year, you're going to see that starting to go back up. But under her leadership, with her focus on student behaviors and positive behavioral intervention supports, along with her experience with MTSS letters, that we think that she was a gem, and she has a tremendous amount of experience. So I'm hoping that I'll have her here in 2 weeks for all of you to meet, but again, her name is Gwen Abraham. Her husband is also a teacher. She was a lifer in Garfield Heights, so this was a big decision for her. She spent 20-some years in Garfield Heights. But she's excited. And you know, one of the things I know that all of you would love for us to have administrators to stay instead of Streetsboro being a stepping stone, which we tend to be. And Gwen articulated, and again, you know, we all know that, you know, people can say and never intend on moving on, maybe opportunities present, but Gwen is excited about making her home here. She feels like this is more like where she grew up, and she really articulated that she really wants to be a part of some great things here for a long period of time. So I think we found our diamond in the rough there. Not even diamond in the rough, I think we found our diamond. And so we did hold back on the assistant principal interviews so that she could participate in that. So I'm excited to make that recommendation.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Congratulations, Gwen. Item 2, or B, it's recommended the Board of Education approve 9 additional days for Julie Taylor at $385.10, which reflects her per diem rate, totaling $3,465.90.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have first and a second. Any discussion?
Just, yeah, so we asked Julie to work over the spring break to prepare to take over at the middle school, and then she also has to work an extended number of days because her contract wasn't the same as the middle school principal's contract. So this reflects those days, those 9 days, at her per diem rate.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, so before I go into the next 3, or actually the next 4, these
Four.
all center around Juneteenth, and board, I did send you some information on that. So I'll go ahead and start into these, and I can explain each one as we do it. So item C, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the board resolution authorizing administrator contract addendums for the addition of Juneteenth as a paid holiday.
I'll move.
Second?
We have first and a second comments.
So what we decided to do, and what I'm recommending to the board, is that we, and we worked with our legal counsel on this, is that we would like to recognize Juneteenth for all of our 11 and 12-month employees, and that would include our exempt staff and our administrators. So this resolution that you have in front of you now actually allows me then to add an addendum to all of our administrator contracts saying that they have Juneteenth as a paid holiday. Now, we all know that Juneteenth or June the 19th will be on Sunday this year, so just like with any other holiday, they get the first school day following that weekend day off. So the day off would be then for Monday, June 20th for administrators and exempt staff. Any questions?
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Okay, item D, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the board resolution declaring that Juneteenth shall be provided as a paid holiday to 11 and 12-month non-teaching employees.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
Yes, so we also then have to pass a resolution for our non-teaching staff. This is primarily our custodians and maintenance services and some secretaries, who are working through the end of June to have Juneteenth off as well.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Item E, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the contract addendum for the addition of Juneteenth as a paid holiday.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
So this seems redundant, but you just passed a resolution a few minutes ago, or about a minute ago, that allowed us to give our administrators this day, and this then would represent the addendums. And I'll have to print one of these out for each one of our administrators. So we had to pass that we would do it, and now we have to pass the actual addendums. And I know that seems a little redundant, but that's what Pebble and Wagner told us we needed to do.
Of course, legal stuff.
Yeah.
Legal.
Legally.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
And item F, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding for the SSSPA adding Juneteenth as a paid holiday for 11 and 12-month employees.
I'll move.
Second?
We have a first and a second. Comments?
So this may sound a little bit bizarre, but this board just passed a resolution to give our 11 and 12-month employees that day off without doing a memorandum of understanding with the union, it actually would have been an unfair labor practice, that we gave them a day off that was not in their contract. So after talking to the classified union president, Paula Cooley, she agreed that that would be a nice gesture from the board to approve that for her 11 and 12-month employees. So this then allows us to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the union so that it is legal and not an unfair labor practice.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Dahlbaugh. Moving on to the treasurer's recommendations.
I'm waiting for a fifth from Mr. Dahlbaugh. I'm just kidding.
What did you say?
No,
He's waiting
being
for
for
a
what?
fifth.
He's
A
just,
fifth
he's just in
resolution.
position to,
I have three for you to, for your consideration tonight. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the renewal of the district's insurance policy for 1 year with a contracted price for $139,105 for the Ohio School Plan, in addition to a renewal of the excess crime policy for $2,955 and an independent cyber policy of $20,420. The total insurance cost for the next fiscal year would be $162,480.
Motion to approve.
I'll
second.
second.
We have a first and a second. Comments?
Yes, and this is a question that I received last year as well. Last year's insurance was unfortunately $20,000 cheaper than this year's. The reason why is simply because of cyber coverage. There's a lot going into the world, and cyber coverage has almost quadrupled from the past, and it's still, as a fiduciary of the district, we still need to hold that policy for insurance
So
reasons.
what does that get us? Cyber coverage.
Cyber coverage, well, thank you I love talking about insurance. In the past, through the Ohio School Plan, it was $3 million coverage and a $25,000 deductible, a part of the Ohio School Plan. So $3 million coverage, $25,000 deductible. When we received the proposal from the Ohio School Plan for this year, it was $1 million coverage, $250,000 deductible. I did not say that wrong. We went from $3 million to $25,000 deductible, to $1,250,000 deductible.
That just tells you how necessary it is right there.
Yes. So I worked with our insurance advisor, and they went on our behalf and a bunch of other districts' behalf that qualified. We are lucky that some districts didn't qualify, and we found one for $20,000 for $2 million of coverage back to the original $250,000 deductible. I mean, $25,000 deductible. So we're really paying $20,000 more for $1 million less coverage, but still the deductible is still $25,000. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the explanation. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve amended appropriations for fiscal year '22, and estimated resources will be adjusted as needed for permanent appropriations.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Be it resolved by the recommendation from the Treasurer that the Board of Education accepts the certified hours for House Bill 9 Ohio Public Records Training. I'm not going to read it all, but it was conducted virtually by myself on June 3rd, and this is, the board gave me authority to do it on the board's behalf, in particular, Mr. Fulton and Mrs. Bedford, at the organizational meeting on January 20th.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and second. Any comments? Please
It
call
was,
the roll.
it was a riveting training. Mr. Violi?
Yes.
It is.
Those always are.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Motion carried. Does that conclude?
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Kiffer. Moving on to Chief Business Officer's recommendations, Mr. Scarsapino.
Thank you, Mr. Violi. I have three this evening. The first one, item A. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the facility rental agreement between Streetsboro City School District Board of Education and Lisa School of Dance as shown in the attachment.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second.
Nope.
Comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
Recommendation number two, it is recommended the Board of Education approve a one-year contract with the Nutrition Group to manage the Streetsboro City School District food services.
I'll move.
I'll second. We have a first and a second. Comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes,
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
motion carried.
My final recommendation this evening, it is recommended the Board of Education accept the bid from Rush Truck Center for the purchase of 378 passenger international buses totaling $308,544 to be paid from permanent improvement funds and funds from the Ohio Department of Education.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second, and I think you went through all of it already, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Scarsapino. Moving on to new business. Do we have any new business? Hearing none. Old business. I have to mention it.
Please.
Get it off your chest.
Get- Not chickens.
Chickens, is that a new
What's
one?
with the chickens? I know that there's work being done on the sign. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes,
Grimm?
that's what we were told.
And I think they're moving forward on it at City Hall, and we should be seeing something shortly. So I just wanted to mention that, and we'll keep talking about it until it happens, so that's all I have to say.
And we'll name it the Brian Violi Sign of Excellence.
There you go.
We're gonna have that Mr. Violi tickering across the first.
I don't want my name on it. I want to be able to promote the great things in our district.
Yes.
So that we can not just have that comment during the board meeting, we can put it out there every single day, 365. So I think that's a missed opportunity for this district
I
to
agree.
not have that toll.
I
So-
agree. I had to give you a hard time, though.
Huh?
I had to give you a hard time, though.
I know. I'm pretty passionate about it.
I know you
We
are.
know.
I know you are.
Moving on to item 10 here, Board President's Recommendations, Executive Session. It is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider employment of a public employee or official and to consider details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols with possible action to follow.
I'll move.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mrs. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedford?
Yes.
Mr. Fulton?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes, motion carried. We are in executive session at 6:21.